question is saying that francium oxide Fr2O contains Fr plus and O minus 2 ions. Describe how a francium ion and an oxide ion are formed from a francium atom and an oxygen atom. So they are asking you that how this francium ion will be formed, and similarly how this oxide ion will be formed from their respective atoms. So as you can see, they have given you the charge of the francium ion, and as you can see, the charge on the francium ion is +1. So +1 means that it has lost its one electron, right? Because we all know that atom is electrically neutral, but whenever an atom loses or gains the electron, it gets a positive or negative charge, right? So if an atom is losing the electrons, so by the loss of electron, what happens? Relatively, the protons become more in quantity, so the atom gets a positive charge. And when an atom is gaining the electrons, gaining means that it has gained more negative charge in the form of electrons, so it gets a negative charge on it, right? So whatever is the quantity of electrons an atom is gaining or losing, that amount of charge is present on the respective ion, right? So for example, in the francium it's +1. So +1 means that it has lost its one electron, right? So how the francium ion would be formed? It would be formed by, right, it would be formed by losing of one electron, right, by losing of one electron. So if the francium atom is losing one electron, so it would get a +1 charge and it will become a cation. Similarly, you can see oxygen has a charge of -2. -2 means it has gained 2 electrons, right? So it would be formed by gaining of 2 electrons, right? Why gaining of 2 electrons? Because you can see a charge is -2. -2 means it has gained 2 electrons, right? So I hope this is also clear to everyone. Now moving on to the next part. In the last part, it's saying that predict the 2 physical properties of this compound, which is francium oxide. What is francium oxide? This one, Fr2O. So for that Fr2O francium oxide compound, they're asking you to predict the 2 physical properties. Now you all know that the properties of a particular compound, just like this francium oxide. So first of all, you have to check that either this compound is your ionic compound or the covalent compound, right? So you all know that group 1, francium is in group 1, right? And group 1 are metals. All the group 1 elements are metals. So it means that your francium is your metal, right? Your francium is your metal, and the oxygen which is present in this compound is your non-metal, right? Because oxygen is in group 6, and you all know that the group 6 elements, which is including the oxygen, is a non-metal, right? So whenever a bond is formed in between a metal and a non-metal, that bond is always your ionic bond, right? That bond is always your ionic bond. So it means that francium oxide is an ionic compound, right? And since it is an ionic compound, it means that its properties would be similar to the properties of the ionic compounds, right? So you have to write down the 2 general properties of the ionic compounds. So you all know that the first property is that all the ionic compounds have very high melting point and boiling point. Why? Because they have these strong electrostatic forces of attraction, and because of those strong electrostatic forces of attraction, they have a very high melting and boiling point. Similarly, you know that the ionic compounds are soluble in water and other polar solvents, right? Ionic compounds are soluble in water and other polar solvents. Because you all know the rule of solubility, that polar dissolves in polar compounds, right? So since ionic compound is a polar compound having a charges of plus and minus, so they would be soluble in water, which is also a polar compound, and similarly it will get dissolved in other polar solvents as well, right? So I hope this question is clear to everyone. Now moving on to the next point. Now the next question is saying that farmers use the chemicals to improve the crop yield. Ammonium phosphate is used as a fertilizer and calcium hydroxide is used to reduce the acidity of the salt. The relative formula mass of ammonium phosphate. So this is your ammonium phosphate, right? And they are saying that the formula mass, which means the MR, right? The MR of this compound is 149. So no need to calculate, they have already calculated for you. They are just asking you to calculate the percentage by mass of nitrogen which is present inside it. You have to calculate the percentage by mass of nitrogen, right? Which means that you have to this percentage by mass of nitrogen will be calculated. You have to calculate the mass of nitrogen, whatever is the mass of nitrogen in this total compound. So you have to divide the mass of nitrogen which is present inside it with the total mass of this compound, right? You have to divide the mass of nitrogen with the total mass. So what is the total mass of compound? Total mass of compound means MR of the compound, right? Total mass means MR of the compound and then multiplied by 100. So now how it would be calculating the percentage? So first of all, what you need this mass of nitrogen, right? So mass of nitrogen, here you can see the formula. It's bracket and outside the bracket is written 3 over there. So this 3 is basically multiplied by this nitrogen as well as with this hydrogen. So right now we are just dealing with the nitrogen, right? So if I ask you how many atoms of nitrogen are present in this compound, so in this compound there are total 3 nitrogen atoms, sorry, right? Because inside the bracket is 1 and outside the bracket is 3. So 1 multiplied by 3 becomes 3. So total there are 3 nitrogen atoms, and if you check in the periodic table, the AR of nitrogen is 14. So for 1 atom it's 14. So for 3 atoms it would be 14 multiplied by 3, right? This is the mass of nitrogen, right? I am again repeating it. The mass of the nitrogen would be calculated by looking at the atoms of nitrogen. So here you can see there are 3 atoms of nitrogen. So you multiply the 3 atoms of nitrogen with the atomic mass of nitrogen, which is 14, which is for only 1 atom. So for 3 atoms it would be 14 multiplied by 3. Right? So this is the mass of the nitrogen which is present inside this compound, which is 14 multiplied by 3. Now you have to divide this mass with the MR of the compound. The MR of the compound is already given to you, which is 149. So you have to put 149 over there and multiply it by 100. Right? So in the calculator you have to solve it. So in the calculator it's coming 14 multiplied by 3 becomes 42, right? So 42 divided by 149 and multiplied by 100, so it comes out to be 28.18, right? So the percentage of nitrogen is coming out to be 28.18%. Right, so I hope this is clear to each and every one of you that how we have to solve these types of questions. Okay, now moving on to the next question. Okay, now this question here you can see is just the similar one, just like the similar question which we have done previously for the francium oxide, right? Here we were doing right, that describe how the francium and the oxide are formed. So this is the question just similar to this one, right? So but here he is saying that it's the magnesium plus 2 ion and At minus 1 ion. So describe how the magnesium ion would be formed. So it's very similar. If magnesium is having a charge of plus 2, it means that it has lost 2 electron, right? So it is formed by losing of two electrons, right? By losing of two electrons. And similarly, in this example, you can see astatine is having a charge of -1. So it means that it is formed by gaining of two electrons, right? Sorry, since the charge is -1, so -1 means just one electron is being gained, right? And similarly, in the next, they were asking you to predict the two physical properties. So since magnesium is a metal, right, and astatine is present in group 7, which is a non-metal. So metal and non-metal makes an ionic bond, right? So since this is an ionic compound, so you have to write the two properties of the ionic compound, which we have already done before, as well as the previous question, right? So copy it down from there. Now moving on to the next question. Okay, now in the next question, they are here is a table given to you, and they are asking you to complete this table. So this is just a similar table we have just did at the start of the session as well. So you have to complete this table by your own, right? So this is your homework task. This you have to complete it by your own. So moving on to the next question is saying that what is mean by the term isotopes, right? So you all know that we have discussed about the topic isotopes, that isotopes of the atoms, right? Isotopes are atoms of same element, right? Atoms of the same element having same number of protons, but different number of neutrons, right? But different number of neutrons. So those atoms which are having same protons but different neutrons. So here you can see in the table it's given astatine. There are two isotopes of astatine. Both are having the same atomic number, which means they are having same protons, which is 85 and 85, right? But the neutrons are different. Here you can see the mass number are different for both of them. It's 1, 2, and 10 and 2, and 1. So when you will minus it from 85, you will be getting different neutrons for both of them. So that is the definition of isotopes, right? Okay. So now moving on to the next question, and in the next part is saying that astatine forms a diatomic molecule having the same type of bonding just like the chlorine molecule, right? So you have to draw the diagram of astatine. You have to draw only outer shell electrons. So just have to draw the outer shell electrons of it, right? So as you all know that here at the first line it's written that astatine is an element of group 7. So group 7 means it would be having 7 valence electrons, right? In the last shell it would be having 7 electrons. Okay, so no need to write down the complete electronic configuration for astatine, because they are asking you in the question that draw only the outer shell electrons, and you already know that since it is a part of group 7, so it would be having 7 electrons in the outermost shell. So if I draw the astatine and just draw the outermost shell, so you all know that in the outermost shell I just have to draw the 7 electrons. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, and 7. Similarly, if you draw another astatine, right, so it would be drawn in a similar way, and it would be again, but right now you have to draw the cross. The electrons must be drawn with the cross sign. So here it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if I ask you that how much electrons do each of astatine require, right? So here you can see that the outermost shell we are having 7 electrons. So this astatine just need 1 more electron. Similarly, the another astatine also needs just 1 more electron to complete this outermost shell. So what will happen? They both will be sharing their 1 electron each, right? They both will be sharing these 2 electrons. This astatine will be sharing this one electron to this astatine, and this astatine will share its plus one electron to another astatine. And similarly, they will overlap with each other. So you have to draw the diagram in this way, overlapping diagram. And after this overlapping, you have to show that this dot and this cross are being shared. This dot and this cross are being shared, while the rest of the electrons remain same. So you have to draw the rest of electrons in a similar fashion which they were. So this is the diagram for the astatine molecule. I hope this is clear to each and every one of you.